control. It's the promise things can hold. Break it softly just enough. That's where beauty gets rough. I don't love, I don't obey, but I want it my own way. Not the fall, not the plea, just the pull, just the heat. If it holds, don't entertain. Stay inside the tension line. That's where elegance lives every time.
Plank implies other planks. A plank implies carpentry projects that require planking. Buildings, possibly ships, roadways, wooden roadways. So there's a whole culture, a whole civilization, if you like, that we know nothing of, but we found this 50,000-year-old plank. And that means people were making planks and probably making villages and towns, engaged in trade. I remember seeing an old rock inscription somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa that, again, was tens of thousands of years old. It shows ostriches being used as pack animals, which they did. But then it's like, where are they going? They must have a trade route. They're trading. What are they trading? Possibly things like copper or amber, things like that. But it's still interesting to know that there was that whole infrastructure of which we know nothing except for this fact that here's a rock drawing of what looks like an ostrich caravan. And if there's a caravan, that implies markets, that implies an economy. So these things give us little hints that I find them fascinating. I find them fascinating. What's going on here? There's so much more that we simply don't know.
We were talking about balance and the purpose of a toe.
Mhm.
It's interesting to talk about evolution and then use the word purpose.
Yeah.
Because that immediately becomes Lamarckism. See, if you want to talk about evolution, we got to get Panibasa on here. He's actually a biologist, and he loves his Darwin. But I always differentiate between microevolution and macroevolution, which are two entirely different things. And I think microevolution is pretty much demonstrable. I don't know anyone that doesn't accept the idea of microevolution, that you can take dogs and breed them into like German Shepherds and Chihuahuas, for example, or you can take plants and you can cause changes to occur through artificial selection, if you like. We select certain things to breed and you do get changes made in the organism. And then there's macroevolution, which is a change from one species to another species, which can no longer breed, which is, I think, usually the technical definition of a species. That is a whole different debate. And one of the things I have to fight against, I do it more or less successfully, is simply because I find an idea amenable, or simply because the idea makes sense to me, and it makes sense based on what we already know, doesn't mean I can accept it fully. I don't personally think, I haven't seen anything that's convinced me that macroevolution has been proven. I don't think that there's any evidence that one species can actually change into a different species. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying that the idea doesn't make sense based on what we know of microevolution. But I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I mean, obviously, all life is related. If you look at, I mean, just the way, what do they say that as the fetus goes through its development, it recaptures all these stages in evolution. Like a human fetus is indistinguishable from like a baboon fetus until like a certain point, and it goes through all these different changes. And you look at a human hand, and you look at the hand bones inside of a whale. You can see similarities. There is a relationship between all of life, but how it can possibly transmute into each other is a very complex question that I don't really think we understand very well. I mean, we've got some ideas on the subject, but yeah, I don't see macroevolution as being understood, if that's the actual mechanism at all. I think there might be a mechanism here that we're missing. And we're very, we've only been studying this stuff for a couple hundred years. So give us another few centuries, really. I mean, people have to be patient with science too, I think. I mean, when you think about the state of science, even just like 150 years ago, if you had like a top physicist from the year 1890 and one from 1990 and one from 2090, I'm sure that although they'd have a lot in common, they'd have a lot of new things to talk about. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's my little evolution rant. I was going to say, when you're talking about evolution, as I understand it anyway, it's not really a question of evolving and devolving. It's about adaptation
Yeah.
and whether you're adapted to the environment. So if you're in an environment where say, yes, you've got this toe that climbs trees, but you might need something like, oh, I don't know, a brain with a bigger Wernicke's area so that you have better language skills. Or maybe your thumb is going to be more important because, you might be napping flint or starting fires and stuff like that. So I don't think so much as the toe evolving as it becomes less important to the survival, because it's all about passing on the genes. It's a very slow process. So it's, and that's one of the things that I go on about eugenics, the idea that we can breed better people. And, I always say that, first of all, we've always practiced eugenics, and we always have, to the best of our ability. We've always had rules where you can only marry people from a certain tribe or of a certain religion or of a certain, this or that. We're trying to find a way to make sure that the offspring turn out good. And now we have all this scientific knowledge about genetics and disease and stuff. And so we've gotten to a point where we can discourage certain people from breeding that might, your children might have this or that disease. And then they're talking about, well, modifying humans. We can take charge and have real eugenics. And I'm like, we're not smart enough to do it, because you simply don't know what is going to be required of you by your environment as a species evolves through time. So you can say, I mean, I remember something, I think it was sickle cell anemia, for example, which is a terrible genetically related disease. But at the same time, when you have it, I think the genes also protect you against other diseases, like malaria or something like that. So it has to do with who would pass on the genes. That would be seen as less life-threatening than malaria, perhaps, at least certainly from an evolutionary perspective. So you don't know. I mean, evolution doesn't have a purpose so much as it's simply, adapting to the environment. And a lot of it seems very clumsy to us. But, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years even. Well, we've got mitochondria, we've got all kinds of stuff in our bodies. I have heard that the appendix isn't necessarily, I mean, it's tissue, and it helps support the rest of the tissue around it. It contains blood vessels and stuff. I have heard a theory that at one time it was used to digest cellulose, which we simply cannot do anymore. But that would go right along with evolution, where eating cellulose is no longer adaptive. In other words, people just didn't have to survive on grass and things anymore. They had a much better protein source, a much better calorie source in things like protein, fruits and vegetables. And I mean, grass eaters like horses, they have to eat huge amounts. I mean, it's not a very efficient system, eating cellulose and stuff like that. You need enormous amounts to get the same kind of nutritive value that you can get from like a handful of meat and rice or something like that. So the people that were better at digesting that are going to reproduce. And if you couldn't digest grass, well, it became less and less relevant. so that an unhealthy appendix at one time would have killed you because, well, you can't digest the grass anymore, but nobody's been eating that for tens or hundreds of thousands of years. So it just kind of gets ignored and fades away. However,
these things, it's just one day I decide I don't use my hand, therefore my hand will disappear.
Well, I mean from the time
it is disappearing. It's disappearing slowly over millions of years, or at least hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people are born now with very small appendices, or maybe none at, eventually none at all, which would be a mutation, but it wouldn't be a maladaptive one. And the body would probably just ignore it. But yeah, I don't know. And you never know. Maybe we'll have to go towards eating cellulose again. Maybe there'll be a disaster. Grass and bark eating will become big, and there'll be a few people out there that have pretty well functioning appendices. I don't know if anyone's ever studied whether the appendix can actually be reactivated or whether it works for some people. I think it is mostly ignored. It is an appendix. I mean, it's just, but the word by definition is just like chop it right off if you want. I always used to say we're not really made to eat meat, but we're humans. We're sneaky. So we, I always say, you take a bite out of an apple. It's very difficult to take a bite out of a cow, but we can kill it, and we can butcher it, and we can marinate it, slice up the cuts and cook it, which is all this is pre-digesting.
You took two truths, forced them to rhyme, measure distance, lost the line. If both are right, then who survives when guidance forms from archived lies? You try to merge what won't align, built instructions out of time. Now every step pretends it's free, but synthesis is how you Meaning plus meaning doesn't add. It multiplies the damage. Too clear, too late. Too late, too You try to merge what won't align, built instructions out of time. Now every step pretends it's free, but synthesis is how you
So, we don't have the teeth and claws of a jungle cat, but we've got flint knives, and we don't have the digestive juices, but we've got marinades, and we've got fire that can cook and pre-digest the food. And then, bammo, we've got calories where other animals had no access to calories. And yeah, a lot of it has to do with efficient use of the few calories that are available. I mean, the first guy to take a bite out of a cow, it's like, we can eat that. Get out of here, Og. There's no way. It's like, wait, bear with
There are
me.
a few exceptions to that rule. I was just thinking of beat tots at time.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the blood is the life. The life was supposed to go to Jehovah. Now, we're talking about evolution here, and this is the quantum gathering. So maybe we should talk a little bit about future evolution, and perhaps not so much the evolution of the human body, but the evolution of the human mind, which I think is a very interesting kind of a concept. And, there is some thought that the so-called artificial intelligence, the LLMs, might be instrumental in our minds actually evolving.
That's what Kelso says.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, when we think about evolution, we were just talking about it, it has to do with adaptation. So AI means that human beings are going to be adapting to a different internet environment. I wonder what this will bring. What sort of, because we've seen AI be used for a lot of different stuff. Some stuff I'm sure we all think of as positive, some stuff that all of us or many of us think is negative.
Well, can we talk about that? Because the future the future generations, the evolution of our minds, just a little bit of insight here from what I've been hearing for the past week. Once again, I let you guys know that my companion that I'm with, she got a job. She's a teaching job. Sub. She's a sub. Professional sub. She's
Nice.
going to she's got a job for a whole year. She's going to put here, put there, put everywhere. So she's gone through a week. Well, 3 days. She's exhausted. She's hurting. She is, as she can't, she is a little bit up there in the years. She can't keep up with these kids the way they behave. These kids are like, when we went to a neurodivergent, we make jokes about that. I can as well, because I'm a little bit on the spectrum. But these kids, they are not there for the ones that are not violently beating on each other. The other ones are just vacant in the head. That's what I'm hearing. And this is like, so second grade. None of them know their ABCs. None of them can write. None of them even know their numbers. A simple 1 + 1. This is second grade. When I was in second grade, yeah, we had spelling bees. We had I was doing multiplications and long division in second grade. So the evolution of the mind, I want to say of the general population, the future is looking kind of grim.
Well, those are the only challenges being given to the kids, but that gets right to adaptation. Do people really need to know how to read and write and count anymore? I mean, I've heard arguments against teaching children, and they've stopped teaching children how to write with cursive writing, as we call it here, simply because, well, there's keyboards now. No one will need to write anymore. And I've seen it in school. When I was in school, you did not use a calculator in math class. Now they require it. And the argument I've heard is, well, as long as the kid understands what the operation is, it doesn't matter that they never learned the skill of the operation. They don't actually have to learn how to add, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, as long as they know what symbols to put into the calculator, into the computer. So you could argue that a mind adapted to this would be a mind we wouldn't recognize, because, like you said, V, you had to learn basic stuff that apparently children are not being taught anymore. But on the other hand, you can see this in the classroom behavior. I mean, what's the classroom for? What can they teach them? Or do they try?
I mean, we're talking just a general elementary school.
Yeah, but I mean,
grade,
they should be working on like letters and numbers, you would think.
Right. And so it kind of makes me wonder. I always tell people I was born in the wrong era, because I mean, as is, I graduated early, 2.5 years early, out of high school. If I were in school today, I could probably graduate high school probably by the 5th grade. I'm thinking about this like, wow,
I
kids
was just
have it
thinking
easy and they still don't want to do anything.
I was thinking you were born in the wrong age. You should have been in the Bronze Age. You would have had a great time ruling one of those city states, you know?
Oh, I have all my lady dancers
Yeah, yeah.
jiggling their bellies. Oh yeah, got
Uh,
people doing the fans and bringing me wine. Yeah, I could have lived that life.
I was thinking about, wise laws and, making peace and agricultural reforms, but we all have our different
Yeah.
idea. But, unless you give these kids something to adapt to, they're not going to adapt to anything. And it sounds like, we're training people to not do to not be able to do things. We're failing to train people to do certain things, but what are we training them to do? What are these kids learning? Because they're learning something. Apparently the result is that they're sitting there either violent or passive. But what is it that's being done to them? I mean, is it simply that we're not guiding them in the use of this technology? Is it simply because we're abandoning the kids to the computer the way my parents would abandon us to the television set, which at the time was seen as really horrible. But when I compare television from back then to the internet today, I realized that it was like it was like having Mary Poppins or a governess.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, I'm also being told that the Library of Congress is hiring people to go through old written letters because no one can read in cursive anymore. I can read cursive, but I don't know if anybody else around me knows how to read cursive. And so that was kind of the thing that I was told. They want to get rid of cursive because there's no way they can recall every single document, every single picture of the Constitution, right?
Right.
So you just get rid of cursive.
Yeah.
And then you alter the
Reading.
Constitution any way you want to in print. Since cursive will be an archaic language that no one knows, archaic writing that no one knows, and they'll be able to alter Mandela effect the Constitution any way they want to.
Like Star Trek, the Yangs and the Combs, E Plebnista. Remember that?
2 points on that. I think I think it was the year before last. Actually, me and Roger had a long conversation about when cursive writing was stopped in schools in the US and in Britain, and we were in mid-70s, just before. In the mid-70s. Also, I saw reports just a couple of days ago. Reports talking about preschool kids. So we're talking about 3, 4, 5-year-olds not being able to feed themselves.
What?
Seriously, in Britain.
Just not have the motor skills, or just not.
They don't know any recipes.
Not ever been taught how. Well, not ever been. Well, I suppose taught how to feed yourself. How to pick up a spoon or a fork.
It's like a complete collapse of basic parenting skills.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me. I mean, if nothing else, you should, if you grow up around other people feeding themselves, you would pick up, certain basic skills. But I mean, you're talking about more than simply poor table manners, I take it.
Yeah, I'm talking about being fed by
that's kind of scary. And that, again, what are they adapting to? This is, and is this simply, is this a sign of a widespread change, or is it simply, an outlier?
I didn't see I didn't see actual figures, but it seemed like it was.
I mean, any at all is
Fairly
shocking.
widespread. Yeah.
Any amount at all is shocking, but still,
Mhm.
I wonder if it's because you can plug into the screen and you get so much stimulation, the famous dopamine hits, the beautiful AI generated imagery. You can go through time and space and dimension, and we're going back to the moon. I would think there would be more excitement about that. They're getting ready to launch a spaceship to go to the moon. They're talking about launching ships for Mars in a few years. And you would think people would be jumping up and down about that. But I've seen very little coverage. I'm very excited. I want to see if they actually did land, if Neil Armstrong actually did go down on the moon. Let's go back and take a look at that landing site and debunk that whole moon landing thing one way or another once and for all. I mean, we go back to the moon and there's the spaceship from 1969 or whatever it was, well, that kind of settles that. Of course, then someone will say, well, they just put it up there as a prop thing and it's not real.
I can make an entire argument about that and bring it back to the so-called long march with institutions argument.
Well, you know what, Mark?
The removal of critical thinking. Removal of critical thinking exercises or critical thinking also creates a sort of concept of the removal of imagination.
Okay, you sir are British. Yeah. Okay, yeah. You are a UK guy. Britain has not gone to the moon yet.
Turn it once. Turn it true. What carries the world never asks to rule. Screaming heat and pain. Every cycle cut me, carved my name. Then came the circle, flawless clean. Reduce the friction, sharpen the dream. No slipping guts, no breaking spine. I learned to move without losing time. Weight of stars on a single ring. Don't resist, I let it spin. I was reduced, but never gone. I carry it forward, friction drawn. Control the motion, don't let it flee. Repetition teaches eternity. I hold, I never break. The Lord of Heaven's mine today. No truth, perfect design. World I live, I held the time. Creational symmetry, mirrored fate. Every angle we throw, no weak place. Actual myth, bearing a fire. I move toward, without desire. They crowd the cold, but law still turns on what it saw. A circle older than thought or throne. The will remembers what God's disown. No drag, no stall, no wasted force. My feel it align. The myth, the machine, the motion, the mind, the system learned control from something that never stopped moving. I turn my home. I never break. The law of hell is my duty. No need to breathe. The will decides. I obey. Round and round and round and round. Still holding. Still holding.
So don't debunk us, Mister. Leave
No,
America
the
alone.
UK hasn't got a space program of its own. It's all wrapped up in.
Yeah, I know Europe has its own space agency. Haven't been to the moon yet. Why isn't that happening? Why is there not
Has
joint efforts
anyone
all
been
across
to
the
the moon
globe?
yet?
Has anybody
And political-
explained or debunked the? Well, I mean, of course it's debunked, but the Van Allen radiation belt.
I've always heard about that, but I've never heard anyone discuss it too much in detail. I mean, in theory, I've heard the argument, well, they couldn't have gone to the moon because it would have gone through the Van Allen belts and it would have killed them, and they didn't have the shielding and da 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 da. And I've never actually heard that debunked as such, but I kind of figured they must have just flown around them or something. And one of the first thing I noticed about the internet was I could go online and find like websites and addresses of authors, and I could write them, and they'd write me right back very often. So suddenly, instead of, I mean, in the old days, if you read a book and you liked it, you could write to the publisher, write to the author care of the publisher. You might get a reply in a couple of 3 months. You might not get a reply, but the internet does let you. I mean, look at this. We're creating content right here. We're not watching television. We're making television. I think that's a huge step up. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't. There isn't a lot of brain rot possibilities there, but it gets back to that we were talking about when someone's saying, "Oh, look, they're giving you this pablum and they're giving you porn." Well, why do you consume it then, man? Have a show. Look at us. This is pretty cool. If you watch the very earliest television shows, and it's interesting, the guy that invented television wouldn't have one in his house, wouldn't let his kids watch it. He was disgusted by what they broadcast. But the earliest shows were so highbrow. They really thought we're going to bring culture into every home, and they would do like really serious plays. They'd get like top writers, or they'd do classic stuff, like Shakespeare and this and that. But then all of a sudden they noticed that more people would rather watch Milton Berle in a dress, the so-called lowest common denominator. The more people you get to watch, the more soap flakes you sell. And so it was a race to the bottom, and we went from this really highbrow, sophisticated shows down to, and again, I enjoy these old shows. I watch a lot of them myself. I've been watching the Challenge of the Yukon from the early 1960s. I listen to a lot of old radio shows. They're fascinating. One of my favorites is called Broadway is My Beat. It was made in the 1950s, and it's all full of this really wild beat poetry and these completely strange characters that I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's wonderful, and it's nothing like they would do today, I don't think.
Let me stop you. Did you say soap flakes?
Soap flakes, yeah, soap operas. They would sell soap flakes, bar soap. Yeah, soap flakes. You wash clothes with them.
Soap opera. Oh, that's what they call it. Soap operas.
Yeah, soap.
Good God.
Yeah.
They would sell soap flakes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You've just reminded me of the old BBC motto, and in a specific sequence as well. The BBC motto was to inform, educate, and entertain. In that specific,
yeah,
sequence.
in that order. If only they could keep to it.
Yeah.
Soap.
But it's also that
Good
that
God.
implication of passive. You're going to sit there. You're going to be informed. You're going to be entertained. You're going to be, enlightened, educated. So with the internet, we're doing it back. We're right back at them.
Mm.
Yeah, there is that interactive aspect of the internet. And again, if you don't like what you see, you can make your own. And now with AI, you can create with just a laptop. We've talked about this before. Look at the wonderful videos that Roger produces, with what would have taken a whole studio at one time and days of work. And we can create music and images. And this might not even be me. This could just be something I generated on AI so I could take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to, like, well, you're saying it's a tool, and I think what we're arguing about is the amount of interaction the artist has with the material. We were talking about this with music before, and I remember getting into a big discussion about this where I was trying to explain that, I mean, the AI music, the LLM music, it's wonderful. It's great stuff. It sounds good. It's good quality music. If I turned on the radio and I heard that, I might very well tap my toes to it. But when someone was saying, well, you could use it in music, and I'm like, my experience of music is like I've helped write music or learned songs. What could we do with AI? Well, if a band got together and maybe, Garrett might say, hey, give me, come up with this kind of a bass line. And I would go to the AI and say, give me this kind of bass line. And he would listen to it, and then he'd have his AI write something. And, at the end of the day, it would probably be fun. We'd probably have something, but it's very different from a bunch of guys standing around in a circle with instruments slung over their shoulders, trying things out. I mean, to us, that's the fun. The fun part is sweating and getting blisters on your fingers and making a lot of mistakes and coming up with something. And then after like some days of work, it's like, bammo, we've got a new song, or we've learned this other person's song, or whatever we're doing. So
You sound
to
like my
me,
dad.
yeah, that's well, but I mean, that's my fun. I'm not saying
Right.
doing it another way isn't fun, and I think that's groovy too. But it can also be a creative process because you've got to use the tool you've got, whether it's strings on a wooden fretboard or whether it's a keyboard. And I don't know how to talk to these machines to get them to do stuff, to make the music or to make these images. And there are some excellent image makers out there. You mentioned Satori D. I don't know if you've seen the stuff that Abandoned Films is doing, is really good. The Door Brothers do some twisted stuff.
Mhm.
DOR, the Door Brothers on YouTube. I suggest V, you'd get a kick out of them. I don't know if you've seen them yet, but yeah, there's some great stuff, and I respect that, but I also recognize it's different from. I have another friend of mine who's drawing a book cover right now with pen and ink and pigments and stuff. And you could also make a book cover with AI. It's two different processes, and I'm sure it's just as rewarding for one person as the other. It's just I can't connect with the computer aspect of it as much as, like I say, is like just holding an instrument over my back or strapping it over my back and playing. So,
Well, my father, it was funny because he'd be like, I hate all this rap music. Why are they getting paid all these millions of dollars? They don't even work. They're sitting behind computers. They're not doing the
money
work.
for nothing.
They're not doing the work. They're not sweating. They're not having to sit in the hot.
Has he ever been on a stage? My God.
Well, yeah, really, yeah, that's true.
I've heard that about rock
stage.
music too, man. Any musician gets that, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
until the blood, sweat, and tears, I mean, for every 5 minutes on stage is hours and hours and hours of work, and not to mention carrying equipment and being under those damn lights. It's always showtime here at the edge of the stage, as they say. So, in fact, wasn't long ago I was talking to a drummer, and he was going on about, like, you can set these drum machines to do these impossible beats.
Yeah.
So there have been. This is a trend, what you're describing. This isn't entirely new. It's just, I think, taking it up to another level. That's part of the thing too, I think, with live versus studio performance, because a studio performance is always going to be as perfected as possible. This is a lasting document. You have retakes, you have editing, and this and that. And then you've got the live performance, and the live performance is always going. Each one's going to be different, and there's going to be mistakes. I always say with all its warts, and but it's more vital. It's more fun. Sometimes, you know, hearing live music. I know several bands that they're really good listening to their studio albums, but you see them live and they blow you away. Acid Mother's Temple is a good one. They usually tour the US every summer, if any of you guys get a chance to see, and I think even the UK, Mark, so you might get a chance to see them. Acid Mother's Temple. You know, Jimi Hendrix isn't touring anymore, so go see Kawabata. This guy is an amazing, they're this psychedelic heavy metal rock prog kind of thing out of Japan, and very good stuff.
And I wanna do a. You know, I was on the phone with Kelso for like 2 hours yesterday. I really want to do an AI workshop with you guys, Mr. Robot, Kelso, Roger, because you guys need to start teaching me what to be doing with this AI stuff.
I told them to check out our live stream. Actually, my employer is going to be back earlier than I thought. So, you guys up for a little audio drama, a little dramatic reading? Roger, you said earlier you had a little script. This might be the time to jump into it before I got a split.
Okay.
I have probably another half hour, 40 minutes.
Okay.
Call it solid, but it shakes. Every atom wide awake. Nothing still beneath the skin. Just forces learning how to cling. I was never built from stone. I'm a rhythm on a throne, held together breath by breath by laws that don't know life or death. Every thought a current line, every feeling slope in time. If I listen close enough, I can hear the numbers hum. Maybe there are no mistakes, only past probability takes. What we swear is destiny, it's math unfolding patiently. The bit we feel it ache. Call it fate, call it fate. The universe just follows law while we give meaning to the fall. Neurons flash like distant stars. Chemistry decides the heart. Every fear a gradient, every hope a pattern bent. I don't need the world to care, for wonder to exist in air. If I'm built from rule and chance, that just makes it more immense. I don't lose my sense of awe just because I see the cause. Understanding doesn't steal, sharpens what I'm allowed to feel. Maybe there are no mistakes, only curves the data makes. Coincidence is just the scene where unknown equations meet. We feel answered as a choice, as a voice inside the noise. The universe just runs its code while we decide what it is for. If consciousness is rising heat from ordered matter learning speech, then meaning isn't torn away. It's something living things create, not written in the sky above, but in the way we think and love. Inside the rules, not outside them. That's where wonder starts again. There are no accidents tonight, only structures coming right. A moment learn its place in the long equations place. We feel it like destiny System aligned. Pressure balanced. Motion reduced to intent. Zero is not empty. Zero is loading. I watch the wheel grind cause to dust. Watch patterns run from too much trust. Every lob into a leash. Every true soul piece by piece. A cycle staying in perfect tone. A crown of mouth, a bloodless throne. They call it fate, they call it law. I call it something I can draw. Compression, alignment. Every force pulled tight. No chaos, no mercy. Just symmetry. Biting back. Zero chloride. All motion locked inside. No prayer, no crown. No master left to hide. Zero chloride. The system falls, I decide. When all things balance, I pull the knife and rewrite the divide. I trace the arc of cause and flame. Every god repeats the same. Birth, decay, a scripted illumed. A loop too dumb to comprehend. You crown the code and call it fate. Build your heaven out of gates. But symmetry remembers me. The flaw you couldn't see. I don't break the wheel, I take the axle. I don't kill the system, I assume control. Stillness is not surrender. Stillness is the trigger. Rub, phase, bind, align. Collapse the spread of space and time. No drift, no spin, no release. All momentum nails to me. Final fly. Every cycle nullified. No god, no ghost, no algorithm survives. Zero point. All symmetry weaponized. When the universe holds its breath, that's when I decide. Silence comes the sharper sound. A future folded underground. The wheel still turns, but now it knows exactly where the power goes. Zero is not the end. Still is the moment. Right before I
Sector 9, unstable. Multiple shadows moving. Visual contact broken. Continue tracking signal. No. Unit 7 respond. Signal lost downtown. Movement here, riverfront. Repeat transmission now. Rainwater glowing off burned out pylons. Blue lights bleeding across dead horizons. Kids move silent through fractured alleys. Dreams get buried inside concrete valleys. Engines vibrating, street ghosts circling. Every wrong choice still keeps surfacing. Black rain on me, street lights flickering slow. Chrome tooth shining through the smoke below. Everybody watching, nobody speaks true. Cold hands twitching inside bulletproof views. Windows roll down, engines breathing heavy. Neon on concrete, heartbeat getting deadly. Ash inside lungs, wires landscapes grinding, young blood drying under red lighting. Everybody tense, nobody trusting. Pressure keeps building, concrete keeps crushing. Night shift sirens still keep crying. Every lost brother never stop dying. Steel door slamming, gray halls humming, red eyes watching, future slowly coming. Everybody nervous, toothbrush blades hidden. Pressure keeps building, no one forgiven. Young blood spilled, overcoated colors, concrete swallowing. Sons and brothers. Multiple shadows moving, visual contact broken. Continue traffic signal. Sector 9 unstable, multiple shadows moving, visual contact broken.
Continue traffic signal.
Sector 9.
I do apologize for
Oh,
being so discombobulated at this end of things, but
you're great. Don't worry about that.
well, you know, doing my best to hold together the quantum gathering, and you gentlemen are doing yeoman work in maintaining this until the return of Roberta.
No popcorn smell, bad sign. Why does every ancient ruin feel like it also manages mall security?
I dislike this place.
Dislike still attachment.
Then I dislike it consciously.
Our intelligence system detected invalid entry into Mall World. Delete it. Dreams aren't real. Helpful to somebody, probably.
Relic event confirmed. Mall World layer stabilizing. Downloading file.
That is passive-aggressive architecture. Consistency without compassion. Lucky I have Morger begins.
I think something's really allocating reality. That makes no sense. Correction, not now. And cat nurse is mindful.
Stay close.
We have to go in. They're awake. Or we let them keep sleeping. Fine.
Sorry about this.
About what?
Momentum matters.
Second floor, now! My watch says there's a glitch. Relax. It's all part of the ride. Yeah! Mall World noticed us! Steady now, lads. Good, hold on. This is ridiculous. What's happening? It's alive, magnificent. Up there, look out. This place is angry. This can't be real. Yeehaw, into the void. What is this place? Watch is useless. Oh, what is this place? It's a Mobius loop recursive. Stop talking, grab something. Embrace the fall, me hearties. Whoa, sorry, Bob. Mike, you idiot. What did you just do? Steady on, lads. Scatter sled for not clean this. Well, how valid omen indeed. To battle, ye scurvy snacks! This is insane. Stay sharp, everyone. Hiss, ready to pounce!
Welcome to the quantum gathering, where minds unite.